Yeah, hi there, this is tuxaho.com again. Welcome on my video channel. As you probably know from my blog post, I host my own cloud with the Nextcloud software, not own cloud, on my internet provider since 2 or 3 years now, and I have made very good experience. Now I had to decide to get more storage space, and that is always combined with a higher price for the internet provider. So as an experiment, I thought, how about storing my Nextcloud installation here at home? And therefore, for an experiment, I bought myself a Raspberry Pi. We got this little box here. That's a complete set, a complete starter kit, and let's take a look what's all in the box. Okay, here we got the package. Let's open it up. Here's the Raspberry Pi itself. Let's see what's under the divider. That's the housing, the cables, the things, and the micro SD card plus the WAN. And on the other side we have the HDMI cables. And here we got the Raspberry Pi 4 itself. Okay, as you could see, there is quite some equipment in the box. That is the Raspberry Pi itself, a housing, AC/DC adapter, the HDMI cables, an SD card to flash the operating system and to start it, of course, and the heat sinks for the CPU and other parts of the Raspberry Pi 4. The Raspberry Pi 4, as you might have seen it on the box, is the version with 4 GB of RAM, and I don't think you should go for less RAM. You should stick to the 4 GB version. That gives you enough opportunities to run the software. But now let's have a look on how easy it is to assemble all the parts and to start the Raspberry Pi. Okay, here we got the Raspberry Pi 4, and we first apply the heat sinks. That's pretty easy if you get off the display paper. Here we got the housing, and first we install the WAN with 4 screws. That's pretty easy. And then at last we apply the Raspberry Pi into the housing, and here we need the other 4 screws to fix the little computer into the housing. As you could see, the assembling the Raspberry Pi is pretty easy. You only have the Raspberry Pi, the WAN, the heatsinks to apply to the motherboard, and then screw it up in the housing, and then we go further. The next thing is to pick a software, and I decided, of course, to get a Nextcloud Pi image. The link is below in the description, and I flashed the micro SD card with the help of Elana Batcher software, and then inserted the SD card to start the system. After inserting the SD card and starting the system, you might as well wait 1 or better 2 minutes so the first installation is completed, and then you can manage the whole software via a web browser. The only thing that didn't work out in my installation is to access the installation via the local name Nextcloud Pi point local, but there is no problem to look the IP address from your router, and I made it this way to access the Nextcloud Pi installation for the first time. And when you accept this, you get 2 passwords. The one is the Nextcloud Pi administration, and the other one is the Nextcloud admin user which you have to use to add other users, add quotas to the users and something else, or add apps to the software. The installation was quite easy, and after starting the installation, I set up the installation, set up the apps I needed, and set up the users I had before on my old installation. And then the only thing I had to do is to copy the files from the old cloud installation and copy them over to the Nextcloud Pi. That is even more easy because Nextcloud Pi offers a Samba connection, so I just could copy them from a Windows desktop PC to the Nextcloud Pi installation. By copying larger and a whole lot of files, you get around 40-50 megabyte per second, not more. So Raspberry Pi 4 is not my advice for a NAS installation. I think it's because of the USB 3 connection. I connected the hard drive to it. And by the way, there are two of them and two standard USB 2 connectors and two micro HDMI connectors if you, for example, want to install Ubuntu or other Linux distribution on this and work with a graphical surface. But back to Nextcloud Pi. After installing all the apps to Nextcloud, after copying all the files from the old cloud installation, all worked fine. But now we have to take care about the fact that you have to reach your Nextcloud Pi from the outer local network, that is from the internet. So we have to use a service like DNS or some other internet providers provide this too, to publish your own IP address, which regularly change every 24 hours to a DNS service, so you can reach your own installation from the internet. That was no problem. My internet provider provided such a service that had the advantage that the whole installation could be kept under the same subdomain as before. Now, after this was done, the only thing you have to do in your router is to forward the ports for regular HTTP, that's the port 80, and for HTTPS, that's the port 443, from the outside internet to the Raspberry Pi IP address, and of course the same way backwards from the inner local net out to the internet. And that was all there was to it. That was all the installation I had to do. The only thing I had is some problems in delaying connecting to the cloud from the local net. And when I installed DNS mask on my Raspberry Pi 4 installation, for local DNS service, I defined the cloud to be one of the IP numbers of the local internet, so I had no problems to reach my local cloud here at home from the internet from outside with a mobile connection with my smartphone. Okay, that was my experiences with Raspberry Pi. The installation is running around 4 or 5 weeks now, and now I have much more space. I have a 1 terabyte hard drive connected to it, so there is no need to get more storage space on my internet provider, and so far the installation works pretty good. Maybe another thing you should, if you sync your calendars and your contacts with your cloud, which I do, just export all the calendars and your contacts from the old installation so you are able to import them back in the new installation. That's almost all you have to take care of. Okay, that was my little experiences with the Raspberry Pi so far. It works pretty well. And if you have any questions to it, just place them in the comments of the video or in the corresponding blog post on my blog. And if this little video was a little bit helpful to you, you might as well place a like on the video. And of course, I would appreciate if you subscribe my channel, but then don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, that was all for today, and I have to say, ciao, Tux Oche.